now check out the differences between the three units considering all the parameters listed in the screen, like the amps available, the possibility to load third-party IRs, the latency, etc. First of all, we have 11 guitar amps in the IR-2 with 11 Celestion IRs. The amps simulated are among the most iconic ones, with Fender, Marshall, Voxes, Mesa, etc. The Iridium offers 3 amps that are a deluxe reverb, a Vox and a Plexi. It also offers 27 IRs provided by Celestion, own Hammer and Walhall, with max 9 at the time that can be loaded in the Iridium via USB. In the Lion we have a simulation of 1 amp, which is a Plexi, with 3 modes that are bass, lead and brown, where bass is a 9068 100 watts super bass amp, the lead is a 100 watt SLP and the brown is a 100 watt SLP with the Variac circuit, well known as it was used by Eddie. Then it offers 6 IRs with 3 of them that can be downloaded only with the app. The IR-2 and the Iridium offer the possibility to load third-party IRs with 11 slots in the IR-2 and 9 in the Iridium. On the other hand, the Lion does not offer the possibility to load third-party IRs, but you can switch off the IR simulations in the case you want to pair the Lion with your own IR loader. The IR-2 offers 3 presets, the Iridium 300 presets and the Lion 1 preset with 2 modes that are live and preset. In live mode, the sound reflects the settings of the knobs, where in preset mode the sound depends from what you have stored in the Lion and can be different from the one relevant to the actual settings of the pedal. The IR-2 offers 3 reverbs that are room, hall and plate, where the Iridium offers 3 reverbs that are small, medium and a large room. Finally, the Lion offers 1 studio reverb, a booster and a noise gate. As regards MIDI, the Iridium has a TRS MIDI in, where the IR-2 and the Lion have no MIDI availability, which is a kind of a bummer. In fact, it's hard to integrate the Lion in a modern pedalboard, as you cannot switch effects or the booster or the amp mods with a switching system or a MIDI device, where the Iridium is much more, how to say, modern pedalboard friendly. On the other hand, the IR-2 offers a control pedal input, which offers more control options, and if you want MIDI you can get the IR-200. As regards I/O, the IR-2 has a mono guitar input, an effect loop with a mono send and a stereo return via TRS, unbalanced stereo out and an headphone out. The Iridium has a guitar input that can be a stereo in, unbalanced stereo out and an headphone out. It does not offer an effect loop. The Lion has a stereo input and outputs with the unbalanced jacks and no effect loop. So here the only unit with an effect loop is the IR-2, which is also pretty clever, as the effect loop is after the cab and before the internal stereo reverb. This approach allows us to hear the effects placed in the loop also from the headphone out, and furthermore the stereo reverb of the IR-2 is truly usable, as you can place a stereo chorus in the loop and before the IR-2 reverb. This is not possible with the other 2 pedals, therefore their reverbs are almost unusable in an ampless pedalboard setup. Both the Lion and the Iridium have 2 foot switches, where the IR-2 has 1 foot switch. Furthermore, the Iridium has an expression pedal input, like the IR-2, where the Lion does not offer any expression or control pedal input. In terms of latency, the IR-2 stays at around 0.7–0.8 milliseconds of latency, the Iridium at around 0.8 to 1 milliseconds, according to the IR you use, where the Lion is around 2.2 milliseconds of latency. Therefore, they are all pretty good where the IR-2 and the Iridium are truly exceptional. If you want more info about latency, you can check out my 23 amp modeling pedalboards latency comparison and the video I have done specifically for the IR-2. As regards ADA conversion and USB ports, the IR-2 has 32 bits and 96 kHz converters and can serve as a 2x2 USB-C audio interface. The Iridium has 24 bits and 96 kHz converters, but cannot serve as an audio interface, just like the Lion, which converter tech specs are not known. If you know, please drop a message in the comment section below. The IR-2 has a dedicated computer app with which you can upload IRs, and you can also define some basic settings of the unit. The Iridium has a computer app in order to upload and manage IRs, where the Lion has a Bluetooth app with which you can, for instance, decide the functions to assign to each foot switch, or you can download artist presets. Then we have the power needs, where the IR-2 runs at 9 volts and 150 mA, the Lion at 400 mA versus the 500 of the Iridium. So the IR-2 is the less power hungry and the only one that can be battery powered. As regards dimensions and weight, they are similar. I would say that the Lion is a little bit heavier. And lastly, in terms of price, the IR-2 is the less expensive. Then we have the Iridium and lastly the Lion, which is the most expensive one, at least in euros. So let's summarize. In my opinion, the main differences or the differences that I would highlight are the possibility to control the Iridium via MIDI that allows for the best integration of this pedal in a modern pedalboard, for instance using a switching system or a MIDI device. The IR-2 has no MIDI, but you can control it via an external controller, and if you want MIDI you can get the IR-200. Lastly, the Lion has no MIDI or external foot switches, which makes it harder to integrate the Lion in an ampless pedalboard. Then I would mention obviously the different amp modeled and the possibility to load custom IRs in the Iridium and in the IR-2, where the Lion is, how to say, a more closed platform. Then the IR-2 is the only unit with an effect loop, with mono send and stereo return via TRS jack, with the effect loop placed after the amp and before the reverb, so that you can place, for instance, a stereo chorus before the IR-2 stereo reverb. With the Iridium and the Lion, the reverb has to be always placed before your external effect, as they don't have a loop, and therefore the internal reverb of this unit is basically not usable, especially in an ampless pedalboard setup. Lastly, I would mention that the IR-2 is the only unit which can be used as an audio interface that can be battery powered and that is the less expensive of the three. Please let me know if there is something wrong or there are other differences that I didn't mention and that are important for you, so that we can enrich this comparison and help other guitarists who are unsure which unit to buy. Let's now hear some more sounds. Final considerations here, and please notice that these are gonna be my personal opinions for my specific use cases, and you may not agree with me, and this is totally fine. Furthermore, I have purchased this unit with my own money, with the exception of the Boss IR-2, that the boss has sent me for free. Let's start talking about the tone. First of all, let me say that in terms of tone, it is really hard to give an opinion, as each device has its own pros and cons. Generally speaking, I would say that the IR-2 is a little bit more glassy, which is somehow good. It has more gain compared to the real amp, and it is a bit more noisy than the other two. Furthermore, I found that typically it is easier to place the IR-2 into the mix. I mean, it has something that allows it to cut better through the mix. Maybe this is due to the aforementioned glassiness. The Strymon is lacking bass frequency. Even if maxed out, I was still not able to get the deep bass frequency of the real Plexi. On the other hand, it reacts very well to your touch, and I like how it goes into distortion and becomes cleaner according to the volume of the guitar. It really behaves wonderfully. But man, the bass are really lacking. The Lion is a bit of a question mark. I think it is the more close to the real amp when pushed by the tube screamer, and generally speaking when maxed out in terms of volume. On the other hand, with the volume at 6, it becomes darker compared to the real deal. I think too much darker. With the app you can make some more deep tweaks compared to the other units, like changing the bright cap, jumpering the channels or not, etc. Even if, to be honest, the differences I found were so tiny that I ended up not caring about these parameters. Obviously, the other difference in terms of tone is that, not considering the Plexi, both the IR-2 and the Iridium offer more amps and provide us with more tonal option, generally speaking. But please let me know your opinions about the tone in the comment section below. In terms of technical characteristics, of features that they offer, I think we have some important elements that can help us to choose the right unit according to our needs. Let's talk about live use. The Iridium is the only unit which offers the possibility to control it via MIDI, and therefore it is the easier one to be integrated in an ampless pedalboard. The IR-2 has an external control input which helps, and you can get the IR-200 in the case you want MIDI, where the Lion has no MIDI and no external controller input. Therefore, basically, it cannot be easily integrated in an ampless setup. As I said in my other reviews about the UAFX pedals, this choice is totally not comprehensible for me. Even because Universal Audio has spent time and energy in a Bluetooth app to customize the unit without giving us MIDI, this approach goes beyond my comprehensions, honestly. Still, in terms of live use, the IR-2 is the only unit with an external loop effect, which allows us to really take advantage of the stereo reverb of the IR-2, as we can place a stereo chorus in the loop before the reverb of the IR-2. This is not possible with the other two units, and therefore in a complex setup it is hard to use their internal reverb or ambience effect. For home recording we have the IR-2, that is the only unit that can also serve as a 2x2 USB-C audio interface. If you don't need an audio interface, all the units are pretty much equivalent. In terms of easiness of use, I would give the edge to the Lion, thanks to its Bluetooth app. Then to the IR-2, that has a computer app with which you can set some basic parameters, and that really helps to avoid complex operations. Furthermore, the IR-2 remembers the settings every time you make a change, which is nice. I think that the Iridium is the more complex unit. I mean, it has some deep functions that you can access with some strange combinations of knobs, etc., that I always forget. You really need to read the manual. For practicing, I would say that the Iridium and the IR-2 are better, as they also offer an headphone out, which is missing in the Lion. Let me mention also some other characteristics that I think should be evaluated. If you want more amp choice, of course the IR-2 and the Iridium may be better units for you, but the Lion is the only unit that mimics 3 different plexes, and it's pretty customizable with some cool parameters like the bright cap, the channel jumpering, etc. You can do such deep changes only with the app, but let me say that so far the app is not very user-friendly. The first time I paired the Lion with my phone, it asked me to update the firmware, which you cannot do with the app and with your phone, but only with the computer, so remove everything, connect it to the computer, etc. I updated the firmware and then the app was always crashing. So I had to check out the UAFX website for some troubleshooting, learning that I had to unpair the Lion from my phone. Then I needed to do some tentatives until the app was able to connect. Then every time you put down the phone and the phone screen shut down, the app disconnects and you have to connect it again. I mean, the app cannot be in background as far as I understood. Guys, it was honestly a nightmare. I think that in this area Universal Audio has space for improvements. Lastly, I would say that the IR-2 is the only unit that can run on battery and that is the less expensive, with a pretty aggressive price, I would say. All in all, you can get pretty good tones with all the 3 units. Obviously the IR-2 and the Iridium offer more tonal options compared to the Lion. I would say that you should really check out the tech specs and what each unit has to offer to make an informed decision. Do you want 3 different plexes? Get the Lion. Do you want MIDI? Get the Iridium or the IR-200. Do you want the unit that can serve as an audio interface or that can run on battery? Get the IR-2. And now please let me know your precious and valuable opinions in the comment section below. Which unit would you get? Why? Which are the most important differentiating factors in your opinion? Please let me know in the comment section. We have now reached the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did it, please subscribe to my channel, ring the notification bell, as it would really help me to make more videos like this. If you're interested in my IRs or in my Tonics profile, you can check out the link in the card above or description below, where there is also a link to a playlist of songs of mine. Thank you so much for watching and see you soon.